Have you ever felt like you were born into the wrong family? As if you saw cracks that no one else saw, felt pains that no one named, and carried weights that no one ever asked you to carry? Well, know this. This is not weakness. This is called weakness. What if I told you that the feeling of not belonging that has been with you since childhood is not a defect, but a spiritual mark? You are not the problem in your home. Perhaps you are the only link between what your family was and what it is being asked to become. According to Carl Jung, every healing journey begins with separation from the herd. Bert Hellinger said that the soul of the system chooses one person to carry what the others cannot bear. That someone, it could be you. This video is not just another spiritual explanation. It is a hidden map for the chosen ones who are tired, confused, overwhelmed, and alone. But you are not alone. And you are not here by chance, because if these words started to ignite something inside you, maybe it's because your soul recognized the call. And if it makes sense to you, continue this journey with us. You can subscribe to the channel now. That way, with each new revelation, you receive the call at the right time. Some people are born with the feeling of being out of place. Since you were a child, you may have looked at your own family and felt something you couldn't explain, an uncomfortable silence, an internal disconnect, an invisible distance between who you were and who everyone else seemed to be. While others settled into familiar repetitions, you felt restless. While they celebrated what had always been, you questioned what could be different. And this feeling, instead of going away with time, only became more pronounced. It was as if you spoke a language no one understood. You tried to express yourself, but everything sounded strange to your people. Your questions were seen as disrespectful, your doubts as rebellion, your search for truth as exaggeration. But this was never a sign of inadequacy. It was the first sign that your soul carried something greater, that you might be the chosen one of your lineage, the one born to forge a new path within a system that had always gone in circles. According to Carl Jung, this is the beginning of the journey of individuation, the moment when the individual begins to distinguish himself from the collective unconscious, including the family unconscious. Jung said that the soul awakens when it begins to realize that the world around it is asleep, and this awakening usually comes with a high price, the feeling of being the odd one out. But what if this estrangement was not the end, but rather the first step on your true path? You realized that you couldn't simply repeat behaviors, that following tradition wasn't enough when tradition hurt. You saw wounds being normalized, pain being silenced, patterns repeating themselves as if they were inheritances. And even without knowing what to do with all that, something inside you said, that's not the way to go. This discomfort wasn't confusion. It was raw spiritual sensitivity, crying out for a mission not yet revealed. And here's the thing, the chosen one in the family is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who feels the deepest. It's the one who looks at the system and sees cracks where everyone else says everything is fine. It's the one who carries a kind of spiritual pain that no one else seems to feel. This invisible weight is actually an unacknowledged inheritance, a hidden call to break cycles and heal the family. And that takes courage, because walking alone among your own is one of the sharpest pains there is. If you've always felt like you didn't belong, maybe it was never a problem to be fixed. Maybe it was always a sign to be followed. The odd man out in the nest may actually be the spiritual link that God placed there for a purpose. Not to keep things the way they are, but to restore what was broken generations ago. And if something in you resonated with those words, maybe your soul is just remembering what it already knew, even before it was born. You know that feeling of feeling too much? Of sensing the mood of the room before anyone even speaks? Of capturing the sadness hidden behind a smile, or sensing that something is going to happen, even without any evidence? This is not an exaggeration. This is spiritual sensitivity. a gift that the world tries to label as a weakness, but which in truth is a divine tool for deep perception. Those who carry this gift do not observe with their eyes, they feel with their soul. Bert Hellinger said that some family members are born connected to the systemic soul field. They absorb pain that is not theirs, feel pressures they have not experienced, and yet seem to carry old guilt on their shoulders. These are the invisible intercessors, those who feel first, to heal later. They are souls chosen to interrupt the unconscious flow of suffering. They are living alerts within a system that would rather remain asleep. The problem is that this sensitivity is often misinterpreted. From an early age, the chosen one is called drama, intense, weird. But how can we explain what we feel without words? How can we translate the invisible to those who only believe in what they see? Carl Jung said that human beings need to make their unconscious conscious, or they will be dominated by it and call it destiny. And that is exactly what the sensitive person does. They feel what is hidden and try to translate it, even without knowing how. This sensitive soul lives between extremes. Sometimes they feel blessed, sometimes they feel cursed for feeling too much. There are days when your empathy seems like a gift, and other days, a curse. But in spiritual eyes, this ability is not a weakness. It is a divine key to breaking generational patterns. You can perceive emotional cracks before they become abysses. You can intervene in silent cycles before they become tragic destinies. And this in itself already places you as a bridge of transformation. But feeling too much is also tiring. It's tiring to carry invisible weights. It's tiring to absorb other people's pain while trying to understand your own. It's tiring to be the first to notice and the last to be heard. But this is the burden of those who were called to transform, not to fit in. Your mission is silent, but profound. You don't need everyone to understand what you feel. You just need to accept that you were entrusted with a gift that few would know how to carry. Perhaps your sensitivity has been mistaken for instability. Perhaps you were made to believe that you were the problem, when in fact you were the solution incarnate. The chosen one of the family feels more because he needs to heal more. He hears what no one says. He sees what no one admits. And because of this, he carries a mission that can only be accessed by the soul. So if you have ever wondered why everything about you seems more intense, perhaps it is because your soul was born equipped to change everything that seemed immutable. Some people walk around the world with a strange feeling, that of carrying something bigger than their own story. It's as if life's pains are disproportionate, as if challenges always seem heavier, even for no apparent reason. And when they try to explain this burden, no one understands. They think it's drama, that it's an exaggeration. But what few people know is that there is a kind of invisible weight that doesn't belong to you alone. It has roots. It has a name. It has generations. Bert Hellinger called this invisible loyalty, an unconscious movement where someone in the family takes on, out of blind love, the destiny that others could not bear. It could be the grandmother's sadness, the father's emotional failure, the mother's repression. All of this lives in the family's soul, and the chosen one, without knowing it, silently offers himself to heal what no one has faced. This is not masochism. It is a mission, a divine mission written before you were even born. Carl Jung said that you only become enlightened when you become aware of what was in the shadows. And this shadow is often systemic. You repeat patterns that are not even yours. You have inherited fears, guilt that you don't understand, sabotage that seems glued to your soul. No matter how hard you try to move forward, something pulls you back. And maybe now you're realizing it's not just about you, it's about your spiritual family tree. It's about breaking chains that began long before you arrived. The most challenging part is that even when you try to be light, you face resistance that you cannot explain. Relationships that implode, families that reject you, cycles that exhaust you. All of this can be a reflection of a mission that has not yet been understood. The chosen one of the family is the one who bleeds in the present to heal the past and free the future. Therefore, the fatigue you feel is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is the weight of generations being transformed within you. This weight makes you stronger, even if you haven't noticed it yet. It gave you a faith that endures even in silence. It gave you the ability to continue even when everyone else has stopped. It taught you to listen to the voices of the Spirit in the midst of chaos. And even if everything around you tells you to give up, something inside you insists on not giving in. Because deep down you know there is a hidden purpose behind every battle, and it begins to reveal itself when you accept the weight as part of your anointing. You are not burdened by chance, you are being polished. Your loyalty without applause, your pain without an audience, your strength without recognition, all of this is planting seeds of liberation that will blossom in places you may never set foot. The invisible intercessor of the family is almost never understood, but he is essential. And if you have come this far, perhaps you have already felt you do not carry only your story. You carry the key that can change the entire history of your lineage. Nothing hurts more than being rejected by the one you love, and when that rejection comes from your own family, the pain seems to penetrate layers of your soul. You try to explain your dreams, your feelings, your outlook on life, but all you get in return is silence, judgment, or criticism. And deep down, you start to wonder, is there something wrong with me? But what if what you call rejection is actually a sign of spiritual alignment? Jesus once said, "A man's enemies will be those of his own household," not because the family is bad, but because change is scary. Bert Hellinger explained that the family system tends to resist transformation. When someone tries to heal, they automatically become a threat. The chosen one of the family, when starting his path to liberation, messes with the hidden structures of pain. And for this reason, he is seen as the misfit, the rebel, the different one. But this rejection is the greatest proof that his presence disturbs what needs to change. Carl Jung said that those who bring light must bear the weight of their conscience. When you begin to see what no one else wants to see, you tend to be seen as the problem, when in fact, you are the answer. The hero of the family's soul is the one who steps away not out of pride, but out of protection, because he understands that he cannot lose himself trying to fit into a place that is not yet ready for healing. And this requires a spiritual maturity that few can develop. It is important to know your silence also speaks volumes. Your presence, even if discreet, already challenges emotional structures that have been repeating themselves for decades. You represent a possibility of rupture, and ruptures provoke fear. Many prefer the familiar pain to the uncertainty of change. For this reason, they will try to discredit you, minimize your words, mock your faith. But this resistance is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of the silent transformation that has already begun to happen because of you. This rejection hurts, but it also strengthens you. It forces you to seek deeper roots in God, to find security in yourself, to stand firm, not in external recognition, but in your spiritual authority. Because the chosen one of the family needs to learn to remain faithful even when no one understands him. He carries a mission that comes from above, and therefore he cannot depend on the validation of those who still live on the surface. This is faith. This is a spiritual structure under construction. If you have been rejected for being sensitive, spiritual, and questioning, perhaps what is happening is not punishment, but divine confirmation. Perhaps you are exactly where you are supposed to be, at the point of friction between the old and the new. And that is where the breaking points begin. You were not made to be understood. You were made to be used. And when that awareness sets in, rejection turns into strength and loneliness into revelation. There is a type of loneliness that cannot be explained. It has nothing to do with being physically alone, but with feeling strange even when surrounded by people. It is that sensation of living on a different frequency, as if the whole world were moving at one pace, and you at another. While everyone else seems distracted by the noise of everyday life, something inside you remains attentive to the invisible. And that is where sacred solitude begins, the space where God begins to speak in a way that only the chosen one can hear. Carl Jung described the unconscious as a territory full of subtle messages, where the soul captures what the eyes cannot see. Bert Hellinger said that the family soul speaks softly, and only those who are willing to stop listen. The chosen one of the family is separated not by punishment, but by preparation. The absence of applause is space for revelation. Emotional distance is not abandonment, it is strategic isolation. It is in silence that God delivers the secrets that shape the mission of the sensitive. It is in the wilderness that prophets are trained. Moses was taken from the palace and driven into isolation before he could free his people. Joseph was thrown into the pit before he could rule. David tended sheep unseen before he was anointed. The pattern is always the same: separation, revelation, elevation. The solitude that hurts is actually refining. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. And all that you have lived in silence is building a spiritual fortress that no one will understand, but many will need. It is natural to desire companionship, understanding, someone who validates your path, but the chosen one's journey is marked by moments when not even those closest to you can reach your depth. This does not make you better, it makes you more responsible. Because those who listen to what others do not hear need to carry what others cannot bear, and those who receive revelations that no one else sees need to support decisions that no one else understands. Maybe you have prayed, cried, questioned, all without witnesses. Maybe you have felt that no one sees you, that your pain is invisible, that your path is too lonely. But there is a hidden truth in all this. The solitude of the chosen is the place where God whispers what cannot be said in the crowd. It is in the desert that he plants visions. It is in the silence that he releases directions. And it is in this hiding place that the invisible force is born, that sustains those who have been set apart with purpose. If you've been feeling alone, out of place, spiritually isolated, breathe. You're not being ignored. You're being positioned. The solitude of the chosen is fertile ground for spiritual alignment, and what feels like pause is preparation. What feels like rejection is a summons, and when everything around you seems silent, remember, maybe it's precisely because heaven is speaking to you alone. Every family carries a story, some beautiful, some heavy, but almost all marked by repetitions that span generations. Addictions, traumas, silences, abandonments, emotional failures, all of this accumulates in the roots of the family tree. And at some point in time, God chooses someone to break up. Someone who, even without understanding why, feels that they can no longer continue as they have always been. And that's where you come in. You are not continuity, you are rupture. You did not come to repeat yourself, you came to start over. While everyone else follows patterns without question, you feel the discomfort. While the family settles into the pain that has become routine, you are restless. This restlessness is not random. It is the spirit of transformation stirring within you. Bert Hellinger said, "What has been excluded wants to return." And perhaps God has chosen you to be the portal for this reconciliation. Carl Jung stated that human beings carry within themselves the potential to transform their own destiny and that of many others. For him, the family unconscious needs to be illuminated by someone willing to look head-on at what everyone denies. This person is the chosen one. He is the new root that grows where the earth seemed barren. And even though he is still alone in this awakening, he is already breaking with cycles that have been repeating themselves for decades or even centuries. You may be the first in your lineage to seek emotional healing, to speak openly about trauma, to seek God deeply, to break with emotional addictions, to rebuild broken bonds. This may seem small, but spiritually it is immense. Through you, God plants a new structure, a new consciousness, a new chance. And this new root not only sustains the present, it paves the way for the fruits of the future to flourish healthily. Of course, this doesn't happen without pain. Growing up in a family where no one understands your process can be lonely and confusing. You try to bring light and receive irony. You try to talk about healing and hear silence. You try to reconnect, but encounter walls. Even so, something inside you insists, because those who are chosen to be new roots know that they won't reap the fruits of everything they plant. But they plant anyway, for love, for faith, for mission. You are not the branch that broke. You are the seed that begins again. Your story is not the end of the line. It is the starting point. Your soul was positioned by God to stop a flow of pain and open a new era of family liberation. And even if today all you see is dry land around you, an entire future has already been planted within you. A future that begins with a single root, yours. Most people try to hide their pain. We learn from an early age that crying is a weakness, that suffering is something to be kept quiet about, that we should not show the cracks in our soul. But with the chosen ones, everything is different. They not only feel more, they are also shaped by pain. It's not that God has abandoned them, it's that He has prepared them in silence. Because in order to carry out a healing mission, it was first necessary to know the wound from within. Carl Jung said that your greatest suffering is the raw gold of your mission. In other words, what hurt you the most is exactly what will make you capable of healing others. It's as if heaven were saying, I need you to understand firsthand what no one has ever had the courage to face. And that's why the chosen ones often experience pain that seems unfair. But this pain is invisible credentials, spiritual seals that prove the authority of those who have gone through the fire. Bert Hellinger also spoke about this. Only those who face their destiny can change the course of the system. The chosen one of the family was often the one who suffered the most, but also the only one who resisted. He is the one who transforms abandonment into presence, rejection into reconciliation, silence into voice. Not because he is better, but because he was the only one who had the courage not to run away from the pain. While others hide, he exposes. While others deny, he faces it. This ability to feel deeply takes you down difficult paths, but also to places few reach. You develop compassion where there was once judgment. You learn to forgive where there was only hurt. You learn to listen to what others ignore. Your pain has shaped you. Your pain has taught you what no book could teach. And because of this, your presence already brings healing. You become a reference without needing to speak. Simply by existing, with your scars visible, others begin to believe that they can also rise up. Maybe you still see your pains as marks of failure, but what if they are, in fact, the seal of your spiritual authority? What if everything you went through was part of a divine, silent, profound, necessary training? It is not romanticizing suffering. It is redefining it. It is looking back and realizing that, despite the falls, you are still standing. And that each tear shed in silence was planting seeds that are now beginning to bloom in you and in those around you. Everything that hurt you will heal others. This is how God works with the chosen ones. He transforms your wounds into springs, your pains into direction, your deserts into altars, and that is why your story will not be in vain. Every part of it will be used, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Because the calling that is upon your life is not theoretical, it is lived. And those who have lived what you have lived carry an invisible anointing that no one can take away. There is a common misconception when we talk about spiritual purpose. The idea that God chooses the most prepared, the strongest, the wisest. But this is not true. God does not look for perfection. He looks for availability. The chosen one in the family is almost never the most experienced or the most holy. Sometimes he is the most rejected, the most discredited, the most broken inside. And it is precisely because he knows what pain is that he is able to support the healing process. Carl Jung said that the hero is the one who answers the call, even without guarantees. He is the one who, in the midst of chaos, listens to an inner voice and decides to obey, even though he trembles. Bert Hellinger observed that the most powerful movement within a family is not that of the strongest, but that of the one who surrenders. The chosen one does not try to convince anyone. He lives, he sustains, he remains. Even without understanding everything, he makes himself available. And this, in the spiritual realm, is worth more than any title. You weren't called to have the answers. You were called to be willing to ask, to question what everyone else has accepted, to break the cycle that everyone else has taken for granted. It's not about being better, it's about being available for something bigger. Being available to be the first to forgive, even when you haven't been forgiven, the first to pray, even when you haven't been taught, the first to stand up, even when everyone else expects you to stay down. This availability costs you. It costs you comfort. It costs you recognition. It even costs you acceptance. But it also opens up spiritual paths that few know about, because heaven does not respond to performance. It responds to the surrendered heart. God does not need the strongest. He needs the most sensitive, the most humble, the most willing to be molded. And the chosen one of the family is precisely this, the one who, even without understanding, says yes to what the Spirit asks. You have already realized that your life is not ordinary, that your pains were too deep to be random, that your perception is too sharp to be coincidence, that your search is too intense to be just curiosity. This is not a coincidence. It is a sign that God saw you. That of all people, you were the one who said, "Here I am," not because you thought you were ready, but because you decided not to run away from the mission that others avoided. You were not born to continue a story. You were born to rewrite it. The chosen one is the one who carries the sky on his shoulders and the history of his lineage in his hands. He is not the one who shines the brightest. He is the one who empties himself the most. He is not the one who knows everything. He is the one who allows himself to be led. And if you feel like you got here because of something you yourself cannot explain, maybe it is just the Spirit reminding you. You were the only one who made yourself available, and that is why change begins with you. Getting here was no accident. If each word touched you as if it had been written with the ink of your own story, it is because somehow you already knew. You already felt it. You already carried it. Maybe without a name, without clarity, without direction. But now, something inside you recognizes you are the link. The chosen soul always knew there was something different. But now, that difference has purpose. Its silence has meaning. Its pain has destiny. And its journey, as lonely as it has been up until now, has never been invisible to heaven. Everything that seemed like punishment now reveals itself as preparation. You were set apart not to be applauded, but to be used. And what you build today with tears and silent faithfulness, tomorrow will be a shelter for those who come after. You are the turning point in a story that seemed doomed to repeat itself. Through you, divine restoration is beginning. So now, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what did this message trigger in me that I can no longer ignore? What was entrusted to me, even without me asking, but now makes sense to carry? If God is calling me to be the link, what am I still putting off for fear of not being enough? Because maybe it's time to stop running away and start accepting. Maybe all heaven is waiting for is your yes. And if you feel this calling is for you, stay with us. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and walk side by side with others who also understood that they were not born to repeat, but to break through. If something in you recognized itself in that pain, it's because your soul already knew that it wasn't just yours. Write in the comments, at what point in this journey did you realize that you carry something that no one else sees? What you share may be just the silent signal that another chosen one has been waiting for to not give up.